Hello, I'm Dr. Holly Hampy. I am the Program Director for Health Administration, and today we have very much an opportunity to talk to David Munn from the Career Center. And with our programs requiring an internship, I thought it would be important for you to know who David is and for him to explain a little bit about the Career Center, since you will be involved in this going forward into your internship. Welcome, David.
Oh,
Thank you very much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me, Holly. Appreciate it.
Prior to explaining your role in the Career Center, can you explain your background, how you got to where you are, what your education is?
Sure, glad to. This is probably my second or third career working in the Career Center. I started out as a telecommunication person. I worked in a distribution center and worked my way up to where I was a field tech. Got a little bit tired of that and decided to try something else. I went back to college to get another degree. I found I really liked my academic advisor, so I found out what I would need to do to become an academic advisor, so that's what I did. I got my master's in higher education, and I did that I worked in higher education as an advisor for about 5 years in a business college. And then I started to have some interest in maybe doing some counseling, and so I went back for a second master's and I got a community counseling degree. Counseling can be a very challenging field. I got out there and I worked as a mobile therapist and found it was extremely difficult. And so I came back to my first love, which was higher education. Oddly enough, it took me about a year to find a job, and so I used that experience to help other students, to want to help other people to find a great career and to do the things that they needed to do. So I did that. I'm a retired reservist, military reservist, so the military has always been a big part of my life.
Perfect. Now, David, what is your role in the Career Center?
Okay. I'm a career counselor. I've been in the Career Center since 2010. I'm a career counselor. I also work with the Workforce Recruitment Program, which helps students with disabilities. I am also a veterans rep, so I work with veterans, from my background. What else do I do? I was a co-op coordinator here for my first 2.5 years in the Career Center.
What is a co-op coordinator?
A co-op coordinator is 3 years ago, the College of Business for Accounting, Computer Information Systems and Engineering all had co-op programs which combined an academic course load or program with actual practical experience. So most of those students did 2 co-op experiences where they would work full-time and then go to school.
Perfect. We're going to be talking about the internship requirement for the degree. Besides that, are there other things that people would come to the Career Center for besides setting up an internship or a career opportunity outside of the organization, like a mentoringship? Is there anything else that the Career Center would be helping with before we dive into the internship requirement?
Well, just really preparing students, resumes, cover letters, kind of doing more research into their field, especially with health services administration. There's a lot of different things that you can do with that degree, and so it's very helpful early on to start thinking about, what do I want to do? Do I want to work in the financial part of it? Do I want to work with patients, customer service, human resources? So that kind of early research is very important because a lot of those positions require certifications, maybe additional coursework. So that's kind of what we do early on.
So our undergraduate and graduate students that are required to do an internship, if they had, they weren't exactly sure where they would want to do an internship, would that be something they could come to the Career Center and help get guidance or direction or resources?
Absolutely, absolutely. What we encourage our students to do is we have a couple of career assessments, interest assessments that they can do, which kind of point them in a direction of, what do I like working with more with people, or do I like working more with things? With financial information, people, so we can help kind of delineate, help them kind of flesh out, some of those different, how to evaluate some of those internship opportunities before they actually start looking at internships.
So these students will be online. Is it something that they can communicate with the Career Center online to do something, a survey like that? Or would they have to come on campus to do that?
In the past, we haven't had any students that have done that online, but we absolutely can do that.
So it's a doable, that could be.
Absolutely. That's one thing. For the last couple of years, we've improved our technology and our outreach to students, so we can definitely do Skype, Google Hangout, any of those things online. Sure.
So when a student's looking to start an internship, I guess the first thing is they have to identify where they'd like to go. Now, once they've identified where they would like to go, what are the next steps that the Career Center could help them with?
You're talking about after they
decide,
have the application process, right, and they sign up for it?
You said something about resume, helping them with the resume. During the courses, the introductory course in the master's program, they are writing their resume. Is it something that you all would help with the resume, what to include in the resume?
Absolutely, yeah.
And is that something that they would schedule time with a career counselor to do that?
Holly, for me, I can meet with you one-on-one. I can meet over the phone, over the internet, any of those different channels.
So if they had a resume, they could send it to you to look at, to give opinions as to what to include, maybe how to organize, where to put some strength at, where to maybe eliminate. Is that something that the Career Center could help also?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times we use our Microsoft functions to review resumes, so we can, what I'll usually do is get a resume and make some comments on it. And I might recommend shifting a section to a different area of your resume. So yeah, we could definitely do that.
So also connected with the resume is the cover letter that goes to the employer that they're looking to do an internship. Is that something that you could also provide assistance in drafting a cover letter, or what to include in a cover letter?
Yeah, absolutely. We have not career guides, we have tip sheets on writing cover letters, thank you letters, all of the correspondence that you would have with an employer. And so we can definitely help customize that and get that ready for use.
So now we have a resume, we've got a cover letter. Now the individual is ready to go to the employer or to the organization that they're looking to do the internship. What suggestions or comments would you have on preparing for that meeting? This is prior to them being accepted, so it's kind of an interview meeting with their employer. What type of things would you suggest to students when they're getting ready to do something like that?
Well, the first thing that I would suggest is make sure that you know your resume. Make sure you know your experiences, some of the different things that you've done, whether it's in projects or maybe special skills that you have, special computer skills. Some people have used Peachtree. Sometimes people have some basic experience with medical coding. So any of those things, you want to make sure that you are ready to discuss. The next thing is the research. Make sure you research the employer. So there's a number of different avenues that we recommend to do that. One is LinkedIn. You can find out a lot of information on LinkedIn about employers. You can also use Glassdoor, which is on our website, our Career Center website. So that gives you a lot of great information about an employer. Some different reviews. So you go in kind of knowing a little bit about the employer, pros and cons. So you want to definitely do your homework. I think that's actually one of the key things that employers have said to us about our students, is that they need to be ready for that question. What do you know about us? Why do you want to work for us? What is it about you that makes you different? So we definitely recommend that. Dressing for success. Oddly enough, you might think that students know what to wear, but sometimes they don't. And so we help prepare them for how to dress appropriately for an interview. And then last is preparing for questions. One tool that we use is called the STAR method. So it's a way to answer behavioral questions. A lot of employers today ask a lot of behavioral questions. Tell me about a time that you worked with a difficult team member, project member, customer. So they want to know how you handle tough situations. Sometimes they'll ask you a weakness question. Tell me your weakness. A lot of students have some challenges with that one as well, so we'll help coach you. We try to prepare you for a couple different types of interviews. One might be a standard human resources interview where they just ask straight questions. And the other might be where you meet with a professional, a human or a health services professional, administrator, where it's going to be more like a conversation like we're having here. You know, walk me through your resume. Tell me about this particular experience. So we prepare our students for that.
David, you mentioned Peachtree. I have no idea what you mean by Peachtree.
Oh, it's an accounting software.
And you would use that for?
Accounting internships, financial management at a hospital.
Okay. You mentioned Glassdoor. How would a student access Glassdoor? Is that, would they go onto the RMU website or go through the Career Center? Is that the route that they would take to get into Glassdoor?
Okay, very easy to find. If you go to our Career Center website, www.rmu.edu/Career Center, and we have an icon on our website for Glassdoor. One of the nice things is you don't have to have a username and password. You can get access to all their features without having to do that, so which is really nice. And then once you're on that, there's a couple of different things that you can look up, which are really good intel. If you're a military person, I like to use that term, intel. And one of those is questions that they could ask you in the interview. Salary information. I realize as interns, a lot of that is set as far as how much you can make and whatnot. But down the road, it's great because you get to see what people at a particular level make. So a lot of the questions that our students ask, my students ask, is what kind of salary should I talk about? What should I say? Because I don't want to overprice or underprice myself. So that's another good area. And then reviews about the company. People that are currently employed there, people that have left there, they offer reviews of the company, pros and cons, and advice to management. So again, it's just like anything else, Holly. You take it with a grain of salt, but a lot of times when you see enough of a particular review, you could probably bet more than 50% it's probably correct.
True. With internships, I found that the majority of them are unpaid internships anymore. I don't see too many paid ones, particularly in healthcare. My experience with hospital administration and healthcare administration, unfortunately, there's not too many paid internships out there. And so one of those things that you need the requirement to meet the degree, so taking an unpaid internship is probably going to be what they're going to need to do to fulfill that.
Gotcha.
Now, we've got students that are all over the place. We've got, 80% of our students are from this area, but we've got 20% that are not. Does that pose a problem in working with the Career Center?
Not at all, Holly. We're, like I said before, we use any number of different channels to work with you. So again, Skype, Google+, online, internet, phone, any of those different ways to communicate. We can definitely do that for those students.
And making appointments with the Career Center, is that something? I know you have an email address on RMU that a student could contact you to set up an appointment, set up a Google Hangout. Is that something that the way to communicate with you would be via email?
Actually, that's a really good question. If you are going to just to set up an appointment, the best thing to do is call our main number. It's 412-397-6333, and let our receptionist, it's either Marla or Sheila, let them know that you'd like to make an appointment with me, and let them know what kind of appointment you'd like to make. So if it's a Skype appointment or a Google Hangout or a phone appointment, any of those things, just let them know. Chances are, if it's a phone interview or a Skype interview, I'll be contacting you. So, we have your, if you want to leave your email, we can, a lot of times before I meet with students, I ask them to send me their resume. And so I can reach out to you, kind of give you some information about what you need to have with you and how the process works. So I can give you the briefing about that. But as far as setting up the appointment, it just from the fact that I don't always answer my phone because I'm working on resumes or whatever. But if you just go through the main number and set up an appointment, I'll take it from there.
So after the student has gone to the initial meeting with an employer, what feedback are you getting back from the students? Anything that they're saying that they were surprised about, things that they didn't have an idea about?
You're talking about the interview?
The interview.
Probably the fact, one of them is it wasn't the type of interview I expected it would be.
Too many behavioral questions asked?
No, just the style of interview. And again, I guess in anything where you're learning something at the very beginning, a lot of the recommendations and advice that you get is somewhat structured. Like I said before, the STAR method. But the other type of interview, again, we're learning that we have to prepare our students for those types as well. Like, where you would not be meeting with an HR person, you'd be meeting with a professional. Mm-hmm. And that interview a lot of times looks entirely different. The other thing might be a multi-person panel interview. Mm-hmm. That shakes up a lot of students as well. So, a lot of times when that process is going on, it's a good idea for the student to find out how many people will I be meeting with, who will I be meeting with. Mm-hmm. So that way that student can be prepared for, okay, if I'm going to be talking to my boss, what kind of possible questions can I expect? If I'm talking to an HR person, what possible questions can I expect?
That's an excellent suggestion. Employers often use this internship as a test drive of the individual to see, one, would they fit into the organization if they had an approved position at the end of the internship? Do they fit within the organization? And sometimes it's a good fit and they'll do anything in their power to develop a position for that individual. Yeah. Or it may be something that they can't wait till the individual's done with their internship so they can let them go back home. And one of the questions that you raised about, and it's always a tough interview question about the weaknesses, because you don't really want to, it's not your time during an interview to state your dirty laundry. So the weakness got to be something that is, I'm not going to say, well, my weakness is I never show up on time.
Right.
And the employer would say, check you off the list, you're out of here.
Exactly.
So, I've seen weaknesses identified that a workaholic, that I put, and that may be a positive for the employer.
Sure.
So, any ideas on weaknesses that individuals, when asked that question during an interview, that they've responded to?
That's a good point, Holly. Is how do you come across as genuine, or how you want to be genuine? Most employers want you to be genuine, and so of course you would not answer a weakness question in the way that you described it. But one thing I think is helpful is just to be honest with yourself. And so when I come into the classroom and when we do business communication skills courses. And a lot of times students, if they have to be honest, one of their weaknesses is, I don't always know when to ask for help. I want to do it myself. I want to learn. I want to do it. But sometimes I just can't. I got to ask for help.
Yeah, so the weakness would be identifying when they need to ask for help.
Exactly.
And that's, that can be seen as an opportunity for improvement as opposed to a weakness.
Well, see, now there's the second half of a weakness question, is what are you doing to correct that? Mm-hmm. And so we coach our students on, okay, what's the next step? What do you do to correct that? Because most employers are pretty smart, so if you try to have a weakness that's really a strength, they're going to ask you, how does that impact you negatively? Mm-hmm. So they're going to ask you additional questions which force you to answer that question honestly. Mm-hmm. So then the second part of a weakness question is, what do you do to help that? What excuse me, might be Maybe I have a mental checklist where I do as much as I can do, and then I'll ask my professor or my supervisor to help me.
Or it may be something, speaking with your supervisor and saying, how would you like me to contact you whenever I have a question? Do you want me to email? Is it something we can set up weekly meetings to discuss the progress and be able to answer questions? Something like that.
That's an excellent way to do it.
Now, you had mentioned about making sure you know who's going to be present during that interview. Is it typical that the student would take their copy of their resume for all the individuals that are going to be in the interview?
Okay, so that is another good question. Yes, we definitely recommend that the student take enough copies for and maybe a few extra. The other thing I recommend is to bring a copy of your own resume. And that's a resume that you've written on. So you have your resume and you have the job description. And so you write on your resume what you think is going to be important for that employer to see or to know about you. You could write, a lot of employers like to hear stories. So, that's kind of where we're, trying to coach students toward is feel comfortable telling a story about this experience that you have. Don't be afraid to show your passion. And one way to do that is to just remind yourself. You have your resume, you might write story. You might write, story about a conflict. Anything like that.
Just something to trigger your mind to say, I want to make sure I tell them that.
Yeah.
And be able, and that's always a good thing at the end of the interview. You're able to go down your notes and say, did I address everything that I wanted to address? Maybe there wasn't a question that was raised that was about that, but I want to make sure that they know it.
Yeah. Well, excuse me one second. There's another part of interviewing that students often have difficulties with, and that is that usually after the employer asks you all the questions they're going to ask you, the last one is usually, do you have questions for me? And more employers are expecting you, and they'll usually take, it may be 20 minutes for you to ask those questions. So this is an area that students often are uncomfortable with, not exactly knowing what to ask. You definitely don't want to ask a question about how much money I'm going to make, and your questions have to be around what's the job, what am I going to get to do, is there a training program? Because a lot of times you really want to know, are they going to throw you in the deep end of the pool? And for some students, that's perfectly okay. They like that challenge. But that's something that you want to know more about. The other thing is turning the interview back on the person, on the interviewer. Why did you choose to work for this company? What gets you motivated every day? What makes you want to come to work? And you get that person involved, and now you got yourself a position.
I was at a meeting this morning and we were talking about an individual that had just accepted a position at RMU, and the individual that was interviewing the person said she was so impressed with the student when the student said, I can see myself in this position. I think it's a good fit. And I thought, well, that's a good opportunity for the employer to see this person gets it, or you have to be sincere about it too.
Sure.
But I think that turning the interview to the employer or to the panel and saying, I see that your mission statement says this. Showing clearly evidence that you've done your homework before you came and that you understand what that organization's all about, and asking meaningful, sincere questions about, okay, with this position, I can see how it dovetails into the mission. Can you further expand upon where the company's going in the next year? I think that's good.
That's perfect.
So the interview's done, you got the internship, the individual goes to the internship. What are some of the points that they should remember whenever they're doing the internship? Now this is the long-term process, so I'm sure showing up on time would be important.
Well, of course. I think it's one of those things that I think you have to set your expectations correctly. Because you are going to probably do some manual labor. You're going to probably do some things that you would consider menial.
Like filing.
Like filing, thank you. And so that doesn't mean that you're a doormat, but I think those experiences can be utilized to learn more about the company, to sometimes be a fly on the wall, and to see how people interact. That's good strategic intelligence. And so a lot of times if students can be happy about it and kind of say, in the military, Holly, one of our mottos is whatever it takes.
Yeah, and that's on the job description, other as assigned.
There you go.
But, I know myself, having an intern and having that energy and thirst to learn was always so important to me, and I would go out of my way to make sure that that individual had every opportunity, that they would shadow me, that they would go to this meeting. I would take them and get them in front of different groups. But it was more of the individual saying, is there anything else I can do? Or as opposed to sitting at a desk waiting for someone to approach them and saying, this is what or looking at and saying, I see someone's involved in this project. Do you think I could learn about this project? Do you think I could get involved in it? What steps do I need to do? Taking the initiative as opposed to waiting for someone to come to them.
Oh my gosh, Holly, I think that is a huge, huge advantage to students that have that initiative. And and because the reality is you are going to have internships where your boss might be really, really busy sometimes. And you cannot be afraid to say, who else can I go to? Maybe, like you said, reach out, take the initiative, talk to some different people, talk to the subordinates. How can I help you? Don't just sit there and wait for your boss to give you something to do. Take the initiative.
Yeah. How important is communication during an internship?
It's very important. And again, I think this is what we try to get across to our students in the interview, and that is that speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be, and again, there are appropriate times to talk to people. Your boss, obviously, if you see they're very, very stressed out and all that, it might not be a good time to sit down and talk to them. But again, I would want to find out when we would be meeting. When can I get feedback? Because that's another big thing for most students is getting that appropriate feedback. And so don't be afraid to confront it. Don't be afraid. I've had many instances in my life where, I probably didn't like the feedback I got, but I needed it. I needed to hear it. I needed it, and so it was helpful for me. So don't be afraid to reach out to and ask to get that feedback.
Yeah, communication is always one of those things that is important. It always can be improved upon, and hearing information back. Maybe it's the approach the individual took, and they're getting feedback constructively that in order to be better, you need to do this, and not being defensive and saying, oh, what does he know or she know about me? And I think as I said before, many people, many employers use this opportunity to test drive that individual to see if they will be an appropriate fit for the organization. So I think going into the interview or going into the internship, it may not be that you're going in there to get a job, but that's so important that it could develop into a job.
Absolutely.
And networking. Can you talk about networking, how important networking is?
Sure, and again, it's part and parcel of the intelligence gathering process because what you're talking about there, certain internships, certain company cultures, you want to know before you go in. You want to know what it's like. And one way to do that is to reach out to your network. So we recommend LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, and I'm a huge proponent of LinkedIn, it's a good way to reach out to professionals and students at every level. So it could be students that are in your classroom who have internships ahead of you. It could be recent graduates. It could be professionals that have been working in your field to reach out and gather intelligence. Let them get to know you. It's one of the few places where you get to see someone's online resume.
And I've often instructed students, whenever they're looking to identify an internship, LinkedIn is a great opportunity to see what organizations are out there. Going on the website and looking at, if it's a hospital or if it's a physician, I mean, that's an opportunity. Once you find that, going to LinkedIn to find out actually who, you've identified who the senior team is or who the individual that you would like to work with, going to LinkedIn, finding out if they're there. Many individuals are out there, so that is a great opportunity to, I know myself, when I was working in the hospital, we would use LinkedIn to see if there was any potential candidates for employment. So, one of the assignments in the graduate program is to set up a LinkedIn account. And, I have a LinkedIn account. I don't often go out to LinkedIn as much as I should, but, I recommend that students to get those connections out there. Are you a Twitterer?
No, I do have a Twitter account, but I don't do a lot of Twitter, and I know that's probably a part that I have to get on board with and do more Twitter, because I understand there's a lot of jobs.
I don't do Twitter either. And there's sometimes in the Career Center you also post internship opportunities that are out there that students can see. Is that also in the Glassdoor, or is that posted somewhere on the website for internship opportunities?
Yes, we actually have. It's right next to the Glassdoor icon, and it's Colonial Track, and so they just log on to Colonial Track. Most students have a Colonial Track account or create one when they first start as students. If you're a transfer student, you could either come to the Career Center, you could go to the Career Center site, and we have a tip sheet for Colonial Track, and it walks you through the process of how to get an account. All you need is to know your complete RMU email address and your 16-digit Freedom Card number, so every student should have that and know that. And then they can set up an account. It's a lot like Monster or Career Builder. You set up a profile, your demographics. You can upload a resume, cover letter. There's a number of different ones you can. I think it's up to 10 resumes and 5 cover letters or whatnot. So you could definitely do that. And then you can do searches. So students can do searches, job searches, internship searches on Colonial Track.
David, you've been a wealth of information. Any final comments that you want to make to these students? I think we've covered a lot of it. We didn't talk about the hours of the Career Center.
Okay, so yeah.
You're here 24/7?
Honestly, Holly, I enjoy what I do. I love what I do, and so I have worked with students on the weekends and the evenings because, again, I can communicate with them over email and over Google Hangout, and so
you're flexible.
I am very flexible. I really like what I do. So, but our general office hours are 8:30 to 5. I'm sorry, 8:30 to 6. Excuse me, Monday through Thursday, and 8:30 to 5 on Friday.
And your location is moving soon.
We are going to be moving. Yes. We're going to be in Benjamin Rush building.
After I get evicted from there, where my current office is.
We're not going to have a problem here, are we, Ollie? I'm going to scoot over here farther away from you.
The Career Center is going to be moving into the vacated space that we have in Benjamin Rush for Health Administration. Many of you students may not have the opportunity to go to Benjamin Rush since you're online, but that is located down from the Nicholson Center, and that will be the area that you'll be in starting the end of August. So that's exciting for you all to have a new space and more presence on campus.
Oh my gosh, Holly, we have been in our location for a long, long time. So it really has been a long time coming.
So it's very good.
Nice. Thank you.
Well, David, thank you very much for doing this interview, and as students, I appreciate you taking the time to review this. And as David said, he's available to you when you start to find out what type of internship you are going to be doing, and also when you're planning for your first job outside of the degree. Thank you very much.